My name's Anthony Paul Correa, and those that know me know my name is Weller. My dad was Jamaican by the name of Little Ronnie Allwood. My mother, Roberta Correa. She was from Tiger Bay.
Well, my name is Beryl Mackers, M-A-K-K-E-R-S, and I live here from the time I came from America. And I lived in America a few years, which I loved. I came back, and I've been back 50 odd years. Yeah, maybe more than that. And we lived in Sophia Street, which was a great street. Every nationality you could think of was there.
My name is Kenneth Vivian Burke, but people here call me Ken Burke. That's not they call me Ken Burke. And originally from Jamaica, I have a name we call like a pet name. My pet name was Papa Son, but people normally call me in Jamaican, it's called P-Son. And I was born on August 4, 1924. And Wednesday at 4 o'clock in the morning. That's what my mother told me. And I was born in Kingston, Jamaica.
My roots is that I was born in Wales, obviously, St. David's Hospital in Cardiff. My mother's Welsh, local girl, born in Tiger Bay. But my dad, he came here from Jamaica. He was born in Jonestown, Kingston, Jamaica, in 1937.
Name's Anthony Charles Ward, born in Butetown, Cardiff, South Wales. Of Caribbean and also British heritage. You know, my grandfather is from Jamaica. My grandmother is from Cardiff. Some of her heritage is from Barbados and blah blah blah. So yeah, my dad is from St. Kitts. You know, my mother is born in the docks. Yeah.
My name's David Watkins. I'm a 38 Loudon Square boy. I was born on an Air Force base in Swindon. My mother, Tiger Bay girl. My grandmother, Tiger Bay girl. My great-grandmother was from Ireland. My great-grandfather, mind you, there was a couple back then, I think the first one was African and then the second one was Filipino.
My father came here from Jamaica. I don't know if he was 16 or 17. Then in his 20s he met my mother and they got married, had 5 children, and my grandfather passed then.
And my old man come here in 55. And when he came here, he was 18 years of age. And it was a big challenge and commitment for my old man to come here. But the reason he come here was because of the speech made by Enoch Powell, The Rivers of Blood. And that's why my dad come here. But he always used to say to me, lie him I tell. Him never tell the truth, Walla. Him lie. When I come here, no jobs. And there wasn't jobs for him. And so my dad was just in different parts of the country until he found his settling. But when he first came here, he was given 2 choices. And he told me, he was told, I can either go in the army and fight for the country, or I can go down the mine. And I turned around and said to my dad, Dad, what did you do? He said, I never come here to die. So he went down the mines. And believe it or not, you'd be surprised how much the Jamaicans who came to this country contributed towards the coal trade and the mines in this country?
I was born in 1958. 2 siblings born before me, brother and sister. My brother was born in California. My sister was born on the same Air Force base as I was. My father was American Air Force, so my mother was classed as a GI bride. The stories I got was back wartime, end of war. They had the mainly barracks, but they also had the docks where they shipped in artillery and stuff. The Americans did. So they had like their trucks going back and forth through the neighborhood. And because it was a mixed neighborhood, they'd stop and they was welcome. Did you know what I mean? I got told at one time they did put a curfew on them from coming into Tiger Bay. They used to sneak them in the floors of the taxis and stuff for the dances and us. But my mother ended up marrying one, so that's how we came about.
Tiger Bay, but I call it Tiger Bay, was a beautiful place. It was very, very, very nice. Everybody like was one family. The same everybody was, and a couple of smallies was there. We're all like one family.
Yeah, my grandfather. He was well known in the area as Bengal Tiger. That's, if you go down to Butte Street, there's like a placard in the road in remembrance of him and things what he done, and how he come to end up in Cardiff. I think he stored away, to how I remember the story, he stored away on a ship, and when the ship got to Barry, when the ship got to Barry, he had to stay on the ship because he didn't have no papers, he didn't have no name, so he had to stay on the ship for about 6 weeks while everybody else come up, and 6 weeks later he got a name and a social security number. And then we became a member of the community. Yeah, and he found himself in the docks.
My friend, we all decided to stow away. So when I get to the wharf, and I said, no, I turned back. And they all went on the Windrush. And I turned back there, And I decided, no, so well, what I'm going to do now here, I start my own business. I start my own business. That is when I was a young boy before I started. The Windrush in 1944. And I decided, no, I'm staying back and I continue to do my own business there.
They used to be, I don't know, they had an influence in the area, where, for example, my dad, most people would go to my dad, who I didn't know at the time was my dad, because he was fixing cars. But that was his influence. So they knew that they could get their car done if they went to Ronnie the Jamaican, and he become known as that. The Jamaican who could fix your car. That was what he was known as down the docks before there was a large Jamaican community.
My first job was as Edward Currents in the docks. I was working on the night shift where I drive the forklift.
The influence of Jamaicans was proper. They were the most powerful out of all the Caribbean. I don't care what anyone says. The Bajans, the Catitians, the Trinidadians, all of them. They all frowned the Jamaican. But I used to love the fact that I was Jamaican. But I didn't find that out until later in life, because I didn't know my dad was Jamaican. I didn't meet my dad till I was 16, going on 17. So I couldn't brag about being Jamaican back in the day. But it's like all the Bajans and the Catitians and all them, they used to look at me like as if they say, he's Jamaican. He's Jamaican.
Yes, lots of Jamaicans was here. A lot of Jamaicans. Yeah, the Jamaicans outnumber the people from St. Kitts, Barbados. More Jamaicans here than from St. Kitts and Nevis and other islands. But more Jamaicans. A lot of Jamaicans was there. More than the people from the other country.
But the influence of the Jamaicans down the docks was wicked. The music, you had your Marley influence, but not just about Marley. It was before that. It was all the songs,
What happened with the music here, there was a guy here named Winston Stewart. He had a sound system, but he never played there because nobody, and I decided, no, I used to hire his music set, and I used to keep a dance, and that used to be at Fifth Avenue Embankment.
The songs I used to come to the paddle and outside the paddle, and then the songs that'd be outside the community centre. Years and years of it, like, you know. And then you had the influence of how the Rastafari movement moved into the docks, and then people started locksing up, like, you know. But I always wanted locks. But my mother used to say to me, "You ain't having locks. If you have locks, you'll have nits."
At the Rastafarian movement, I guess it started, I guess, because we was all black boys growing up in the hood, mixed race people, you know what I mean? But Bob came to Cardiff, played in Ninian Park, the old Cardiff City ground, and everybody wanted to be Dread. So they had a Rastafarian movement. They still got some older Rastas who still carry the faith. I got into it, but I think I was just Dread. I wasn't a real Rasta. I tried it for a bit, but I liked the ale and a bacon sandwich. You know what I mean? So if you can't commit, then don't say you are what you're not. So I think I was just Dread.
Yeah, I can always remember, like, when the Jamaicans, but there was certain Jamaicans I could remember, like, you know, like Shecky, Percy, Calvin White, who I thought was Jamaican, but later learned Santos' father. I always thought he was Jamaican from I was a little kid, and then about 2 years ago, I found out he's from St. Kitts. I'm still shocked to this day. I thought he was Jamaican and convinced myself. But the Jamaicans were always here, like, you know, and you knew the Jamaicans. They were loud, you know, they was always loud. Louder than any of the Catitians, West Indians and the Bajans. They weren't as loud as the Jamaicans. And you eventually learned how they spoke, you know. And you knew that most of the time when you seen Jamaicans, these old-time Jamaicans were smoking weed. So that was my first experiences, like, of smelling weed and you know, when you'd see them outside the paddle. And my first experiences of Rastaman was seeing Jamaicans who come from Bristol. Bristol was the closest that they came from. But there was plenty from London and, you know, them big cities, Birmingham. But it was Bristol that most of them come from.
It was quite, we were all like one family here. But there's one thing I know here, at the time the policeman, racist man, have a hard time with the police here, man. Yes.
I tell you what I never forget down the docks, the 12 tribes meeting, when all the Rastas come, and me and Bowden, there was so many Rastas down here. That was how big the that's how big the Rastafarian influence was in the docks, and how many boys become Rastas, that in the end, the 12 tribes of Israel decided to hold their Rastafarian convention in the docks. So that tells you how big it had become down here. I remember seeing hundreds of coaches come into the docks. I remember Dunballs Road coaches, Collingdon Road coaches, Butte Road coaches. There was coaches everywhere. All around the side of the flats, there was coaches everywhere. And we went to the 15th floor, me and Bowden, and just looked down. And I swear to God, to this day, I've never seen a sight on the ground looking from above like that. The amount of red, yellow and green, all run by the paddle steamer, all the grass by Chalky Whites, the back of the club, the front of the youth club, all the side of the park, all up along the park, going along the path that leads to the bottom by where Lillian lived. Just ram with Rastaman, woman, children. It was absolutely unbelievable, man. And that's something I've never ever forgot. as an experience of growing up in the docks.
Every corner all the way up to Butte Road, we had a pub. Yeah, they had in our street they had Kerrigan's. Then you went up to Angelina Street, they had the Butte. Then you go up again, they had the Cardigan and the Peel. They had a pub everywhere.
And then you have the Candlelight Club in Butte Street that was run by Joe Pierce. Joe Pierce had that club. And then now you have a little place I call the Annex in Butte Street that was run by an African man named Frenchy. And a lot of the Yanks, them just stationed at Birmingham, they used to come down to Frenchy Club. Yeah, so they're the dogs. A lot of them get married to girls who born here and they went abroad to live, quite a few of them like that. And after Frenchy died, there's a woman named Eva who took the club over. And that also closed. And then you have the Dollars, you have Sherry Clark Club in James Street, you have the Bird Cage up in St. Mary Street. Quite a few clubs.
Because I used to live next to the paddle, and being in the paddle, you know, you would only get you wouldn't really get no Caribbean music as such. Although my dad played in a band in the paddle in the 70s, from about 1970 to 70, right up until about 73. Yeah, they had a band with a well-known musician in the area, Francis Taylor they call him, I can't remember anyway. Guitarist, so they would do a lot of calypso and stuff like that, but reggae, we didn't really get a lot of reggae until these coaches would come from London, Bristol, Manchester, blah, 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 and bring their domino teams and also bring their sound systems, which was very important.
Oh, the pubs down here, the pubs were wicked. But my local pub was, it was my local pub because that was the pub I frequented since I was about 3 or 4 years of age, because my auntie lived opposite it. So on a Saturday night, when they used to have a little shop on the side of the paddle steamer, so when our mothers went out, my cousins used to take me across there, and they used to buy crisps, like, you know, from the shop. It was either crisps or KP peanuts. That was the only two choices you had, and it was either. I always remember there was two flavors. You had two flavors. Ready salted and salt and vinegar, and that was it. But that was my childhood remembrance of the paddle and going outside there, and people would come out drunk, and then they'd give you money, and then you'd hear all the singing, and then sometimes you'd see the fights, or you'd see women fighting, you'd hear the arguments, and then as you get older, you get to an age where you're hanging around outside there, and then you want to be in there. Trying to get in there when you wasn't of an age to get in, you was getting kicked out. And then it gets to the stage where you're allowed in. And then that becomes a totally different outlook on the pub, like, you know, because you're in there, and not only are you in there, you're able to drink alcohol, which is different now. You know, you're on a different level. You're turning into a man now, so you're in the pub and you could start chatting to people you never thought you'd be talking to. You could even start chatting up women.
The music and the lifestyle here in Cardiff was nice. They enjoyed it here, yeah. Because I remember I have a friend, he come from London, we called him Jaguar Roy. He used to drive a Jaguar, and every Friday night he's here in Cardiff, yeah. Cardiff. Big Ken from Newport, you must hear about Big Ken. They all come down here.
And the paddle, that was Loudon Square. The houses where you go up on the steps, you know, into the Loudon Square. That's where the paddle was built then. I wasn't a pub person, but I liked to go in when there was something going on. And I said, oh, well, the paddle, everybody went there, the paddle steamer.
But the paddle was amazing for the singers that went in there. Or you had the Americans who come from the base, the Yanks, and they'd end up in there. I remember one time, I seen a Yank, a shipper come into the dock, and I was by Dixie Cas, the petrol station on Butte Road, which is now a posh block of flats. And I was by there, and two Yanks come up to me and said to me, "Hey boy, can you show me where the paddle steamer is?"
I went over to Splat now and rent two shops, a shop, and we turned it into like a dance club in Splat Road. In Splat Road, we used to keep the dance here regular, same Friday, so I keep from it was jam-packed. But eventually, it had to close down. The reason why it closed because the guy who used to play the music set for me, he went to prison. So I didn't have nobody else to play the music, so that was all over.
Well, what happened was they knocked down Loudon Square, the old Loudon Square. They built the high-rise flats. We moved from the old Loudon Square to the 5th-storey Loudon Square, Loudon House flats. They built the new Loudon Square, and we moved from the flats back into Loudon Square to the house in Loudon Square, and been there since.
Great.
So we've always been on that spot. My grandmother, my cousins, all lived in that house. Everybody lived there when I was a kid. My two aunts, my grandmother, my grandfather, my mother, my father, me, my brother, sister, and my two cousins. We all lived in there. Everybody lived in that because it was massive. They was big Victorian houses. 3 stories, 4 stories maybe. It was that big. Backyard, big backyards. Outside toilet too.
When I came from the hospital, when I was just small, I lived in Nelson Street until Hodges Square was built. So they started to knock down the old docks and build the new docks at that time.
We moved from Aldsworth Road, and then we came to Sophia Street, and we lived there. We would have still been there, but they brought the houses all down. Sophia Street was a long street. It was, we went to Canal Parade. It ran right into Canal Parade.
We first, well, I can remember, we first lived in Loudon Square. The old big Victorian houses. And I think we were maybe 3-4 doors up from the church. They had a big church there as well.
Prayer. I believe in prayer. I pray a lot. That's what happened here. Next thing other people don't know. When I used to live here, I used to take my car, and I used to go to Connaught, believe me, at the sea, and pray and meditate. A lot of people don't know it because Ken Burke was a man of women. Ken Burke was a man who wrote, lot of women.
Yeah, the docks have always been, I don't know, you could call us a segregated part of Cardiff, because, I don't know, it always had this stigma. And I think because it was the black area, you had a lot of these areas where there was racism. I think they knew that a lot of the hardest kids come from the docks, and there wasn't much that they could do to them, But it didn't matter how the rest of Cardiff treated this area. If you came here and treated people with disrespect and brought remarks about colour and all that, you was getting dealt with. I don't care who you were. It didn't matter who you were, white, no matter what part of Cardiff you was from. You couldn't come down here. A mother and father with their kids, you couldn't come down here and abuse no one's kids. And you couldn't come down here and do nothing wrong to the local community without there being repercussions if people down here found it offensive. It wasn't happening. You was going home and you'd have had a hide-in, or the police were getting called. But that's what happened, because docks people tended to take the law into their own hands.